You think you can just walk away from me?
I felt his hand before I saw his face. Oscar's fingers locked around my wrist at the edge of the marble staircase, right under the chandelier where everyone could see.
Oscar, let me go! You're hurting me!
Shut up and keep walking.
I tried to pull back. His grip tightened. 3 months. 3 months of new phone numbers, different routes to work, sleeping with my bedroom door barricaded. 3 months, and he found me at Tasha's party like I'd never left. We need to talk, he said, smiling like we were old friends. I yanked harder. Let go. He didn't. The music didn't stop. Conversations kept going. A woman in a silver gown glanced over, then turned back to her champagne. A man in a tuxedo checked his phone. Oscar's hand slid from my wrist to my forearm, pulling me toward the balcony doors. I dug my heels into the floor, but he was stronger. He was always stronger. That's when he grabbed my hair.
Stop! Look at me! Look at me!
The pain shot through my scalp so fast I couldn't breathe. He twisted his fist into the roots and dragged me backward, bending me at the waist. I heard my own voice crack, begging him to stop. My hands clawed at his wrist. He laughed, the kind of laugh that said he'd been waiting for this. You embarrassed me, he hissed into my ear. You think you can just disappear? 50 people, 50 witnesses. Not one of them moved. But someone was watching. Across the room, leaning against the bar with a glass he hadn't touched, there was a man I didn't recognize. Korean, maybe 30, dressed in a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. He wasn't filming. He wasn't whispering to anyone. He was just still, watching Oscar drag me like I was nothing, watching the crowd pretend they didn't see. His eyes weren't angry. They were calculating. Oscar jerked my hair again, forcing my head down. I caught one last glimpse of the man at the bar. He set his glass down slowly. Then he started walking toward us. No rush. No panic. Just footsteps that sounded too calm for what was happening. And when I looked up through the pane, I saw his hand move to the front of his jacket. He unbuttoned it. Once. The room went quiet.
Who the hell are you? Back off, man.
Everyone saw what Oscar was doing, but only one person decided it couldn't continue. If you've ever wondered what happens when someone finally steps in, hit that like button and subscribe. And drop your location and the time you're watching this in the comments. You'll want to see what comes next. Oscar didn't notice him at first. He was too busy twisting my hair tighter, pulling me closer to the balcony like he had somewhere private to finish what he started. My scalp burned. My knees buckled. I tried to stand, but every time I got my balance, he yanked me down again. The humiliation was worse than the pain. Everyone could see me bent over, helpless, begging a man who used to tell me he loved me. Then the footsteps stopped. 3 feet away, maybe less. Oscar froze. I felt it in his grip, the hesitation. He turned his head, still holding my hair, and looked at the man standing beside us. Up close, he was taller than I'd thought. His expression didn't change. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look at me. He looked at Oscar.
Let her go.
Let her go. It wasn't a question. It wasn't loud, but the way he said it made my stomach drop. Oscar's hand loosened just enough for me to feel air on my scalp again. He straightened up, pulling me with him, trying to look bigger. Mind your business, man. This is between me and my girl. The man tilted his head slightly, like he was considering the stupidity of what Oscar just said. She's not your girl. Oscar laughed. It sounded forced. You don't know what you're walking into. The man's hand was still resting on his open jacket. I could see the edge of something dark under his arm. Leather. Metal. I didn't know what it was, but Oscar did. His face changed. The confidence drained out of him so fast, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost.
Baek Jin-woo. Wait, the Baek Jin-woo? Look, I didn't know.
Baek Jin-woo, the man said. He didn't introduce himself. He stated a fact. And you just put your hands on someone under my protection. I blinked. I'd never seen this man before in my life. Oscar's grip on my hair went slack. I stumbled forward, catching myself on the edge of a table. My head throbbed. My legs shook. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at the man who somehow knew my name, who somehow claimed me in front of a room full of strangers. Oscar opened his mouth, then closed it. He took a step back. I didn't know. Look, I didn't mean. Jin-Woo didn't move. He didn't blink. He just waited. The silence in the room was so thick I could hear my own heartbeat. Someone's phone buzzed. A glass clinked. But no one spoke. No one moved.
I'm leaving. I'm gone. You keep her.
Oscar took another step back. Then another. Then he turned and walked toward the elevator. Fast, like something was chasing him. Jin-Woo watched him go. Then his eyes shifted to me.
Go home, Shenice.
Go home, Shanice. He knew my name, and I had no idea how. I grabbed my purse off the table and pushed through the crowd. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold it. People stepped aside like I was contagious. No one asked if I was okay. No one offered to help. They just stared, then looked away, embarrassed they'd witnessed something they'd pretend tomorrow never happened. Tasha caught up with me at the elevator, her face pale. Shanice, what the hell just happened? Who was that guy? I don't know. My voice came out broken. I've never seen him before. But he knew your name. I pressed the button 3 more times like that would make the doors open faster. My scalp was still burning where Oscar had grabbed me. I could feel the spot where he'd ripped out a few strands. I wanted to cry, but I was too angry, too confused. Behind us, I heard Jin-Woo's voice again. Quiet. Controlled. If you follow her, if you call her, if you so much as think about her, I'll know. I turned around. Oscar was standing near the balcony doors, his face red, his hands clenched into fists like he wanted to do something, but couldn't. Jin-Woo was still 3 feet away from him, still hadn't touched him. But Oscar looked terrified. And you won't like what happens next, Jin-Woo added. Oscar didn't respond. He just stood there, breathing hard, staring at the floor. The elevator doors finally opened. Tasha pulled me inside, and I watched Jin-Woo until the doors closed between us. He didn't look at me again. He just stood there, perfectly still, making sure Oscar understood. I didn't know who Baek Jin-Woo was. I didn't know why he protected me. But everyone else in that room knew exactly who he was, and they were terrified. If you want to find out what kind of man makes a room go silent just by unbuttoning his jacket, subscribe right now. And tell me in the comments, your city and what time you're watching this. You're going to need to see what he does next.
He's gone, Shanice. You're safe. Am I?
Tasha didn't say anything until we got to her car. Her hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Shanice, that man isn't normal. I know. No. I mean, she looked at me, her eyes wide. I've heard that name before. Baek Jin-Woo. My cousin's boyfriend does security for private events, and he told me about him once. He's connected. Like, seriously connected. The kind of people you don't cross. My chest tightened. What do you mean connected? She didn't answer right away. She just started the car and pulled out of the parking garage. I mean the kind of man who doesn't make threats he can't keep. The kind of man who doesn't need to raise his voice because everyone already knows what he's capable of. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past. My head was pounding. My body felt like it was still back in that room, bent over, helpless, with 50 people watching and doing nothing. But Jin-Woo had done something, and I didn't know if that made me safer or in more danger. How does he know me? I whispered. Tasha glanced over. I don't know. But Shanice, if he knows your name, that means he's been paying attention. And men like that don't pay attention to people for no reason. She dropped me off at my apartment 20 minutes later. I locked the door behind me, checked the windows, checked the locks again. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in my lap, staring at the screen. No missed calls. No texts from Oscar. Nothing. For the first time in 3 months, my phone was silent. But somehow, that felt worse. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Oscar's hand in my hair. I felt the weight of the room ignoring me. I heard Jin-Woo's voice. Calm. Final. Like he was reading Oscar's obituary before he was dead. By the time the sun came up, I'd packed a bag. Clothes, documents, cash. Everything I'd need to disappear again. I'd done it before. I could do it again. But this time felt different. This time, I wasn't just running from Oscar. I was running from a man who knew my name, who'd stepped in like he had the right to, who'd claimed me in front of everyone without asking. I made coffee I didn't drink. I checked my phone every 5 minutes. Nothing. No calls. No texts. Oscar's silence should have been a relief, but it wasn't. It felt like the quiet before something broke. At 9, my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it, my heart hammering in my chest. It rang twice. 3 times. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. Shanice. Jean Woo's voice. No greeting. Just my name. Like he'd been expecting me to pick up. How did you get this number? I've had it for a while. My stomach twisted. What does that mean? It means you're safe. Oscar won't bother you again. I stood up, pacing across my tiny apartment. What did you do to him? Nothing he didn't deserve. He paused. But that's not why I'm calling. I waited. My hands were shaking again. You need to understand something, he said. Last night wasn't random. I was there because I needed to see if you were worth the risk. My breath caught. What are you talking about? His voice dropped lower. Your ex has debts, Shanice. Dangerous ones. He borrowed money from people I do business with. And when he couldn't pay, he offered collateral. I felt the floor tilt under me. What kind of collateral? You. The word hung in the air between us like poison. He what? Jean Woo's voice stayed even. Oscar tried to sell you to cover his debts. He told them you were his, that he could deliver you whenever they wanted. He gave them your address, your work schedule, photos, everything. I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. The phone pressed so tight against my ear it hurt. That's not. My voice cracked. That's not possible. It's already done, he said. The contract was signed 2 weeks ago. He was waiting for the right time to hand you over. That party last night. That wasn't about getting you back. That was about proving to them he still had control over you. My hands went numb. 2 weeks ago, I thought I was safe. I thought changing my number and moving across town was enough. I thought Oscar was just bitter, not dangerous. I was wrong. Why are you telling me this? I whispered. Because I bought the contract. The words didn't make sense at first. You what? I paid your debt. All of it. You're not theirs anymore. He paused. You're mine to protect now. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. I'm not something you can buy. No, he agreed. You're not. But in their world, you were. And if I hadn't stepped in, you'd be gone by now. They don't negotiate. They don't give second chances. They take what they're owed, and they don't care how. Tears burned my eyes. I didn't ask for this. I know. His voice softened, just barely. But you needed it. I saw the way you looked at him last night. You thought you'd escaped. You didn't know he'd already sold you. So I made sure you'd never have to find out the hard way. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. Everything I thought I knew about the last 3 months was a lie. Oscar hadn't been trying to win me back. He'd been setting me up. There's a car downstairs, Jean Woo said. Driver's name is Juan. He'll take you somewhere safe while I finish cleaning this up. You can say no. You can walk away and try to handle this on your own. But Oscar's not the only one looking for you now. I had a choice to make. Trust a man I didn't know, or stay and wait for the people Oscar sold me to. If you need to know what I decided, and what Jean Woo did to the men who thought they owned me, subscribe right now. Because what happens next changes everything. I walked to the window and looked down. The black sedan was parked directly in front of my building. Same one I'd seen for weeks outside the coffee shop where I worked. Same one idling across the street when I came home late. I convinced myself I was paranoid. That Oscar's abuse had made me see danger everywhere. But it had been real the whole time. Jean Woo hadn't been stalking me. He'd been protecting me before I even knew I needed it. I grabbed my bag, the one I'd packed hours ago, thinking I'd run again. But this time, I wasn't running from something. I was running toward the only option that didn't end with me disappearing. The hallway felt longer than usual. My legs were shaking by the time I reached the lobby. Through the glass doors, I could see a man standing beside the sedan. Older, Korean, dressed in a plain black suit. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't checking his watch. He was just waiting. For me. I pushed the door open. The man turned, nodded once, and opened the back door of the car without a word. I got in. The interior was clean, expensive, silent. Juan didn't ask where I wanted to go. He just pulled away from the curb and merged into traffic. I looked back at my building one last time, and that's when I saw it. Police cars. 3 of them, lights flashing, parked in front of Oscar's apartment complex 2 blocks down. I didn't ask what happened. I didn't want to know. My phone buzzed in my lap. A text from Jean Woo. You made the right choice. I didn't respond. I didn't know if I had. But for the first time in 3 months, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I was looking forward. Juan didn't speak the entire drive. 30 minutes through the city, then up into the hills where the houses got bigger and the gates got taller. We pulled into an underground garage beneath a building I'd only seen in magazines. The kind of place where people paid more for a parking spot than I made in a year. He led me to a private elevator. No buttons, just a keycard and a fingerprint scanner. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. I stepped inside and stopped breathing. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Marble floors so clean I could see my reflection. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, not someone's home. Everything was white, black, or gray. No photos. No personal items. Nothing that said someone actually lived here. It felt like walking into a vault. "Mr. Beck will arrive later," Juan said. He gestured down the hallway. "Your room is the second door. Everything you need is already there." I wanted to ask how he knew what I needed. I wanted to ask how long I'd be staying. But Juan was already walking back to the elevator, and the doors closed before I could say anything. I was alone. I walked down the hallway slowly, my footsteps too loud against the marble. The second door opened into a bedroom twice the size of my entire apartment. King bed with white sheets that looked like they'd never been slept in. A bathroom with a shower big enough for 3 people. And a closet. I opened it. Clothes. My size. Jeans, shirts, dresses, shoes. Everything still had tags on it. I pulled out a sweater and checked the label. It was exactly what I would have picked for myself. Not expensive designer stuff I'd never wear. Just normal clothes. Comfortable. Practical. He'd been paying attention. That should have scared me. Maybe it did. But part of me, the part that had spent 3 months jumping at every sound, sleeping with my keys in my hand, afraid to exist too loudly, that part felt something else. Relief. I sat on the edge of the bed and noticed a piece of paper on the nightstand. Folded once. I picked it up. Handwritten. Clean, sharp letters. "You're safe here. No one knows this location. Sleep." No signature. He didn't need one. I was in a stranger's home, wearing clothes he bought, following instructions he left. And I still didn't know who Beck Jinwoo really was, or why he chose me. If you need to know what kind of man builds a safe house for a woman he's never spoken to, subscribe. Drop a comment and tell me. Would you have gotten in that car? I lay down, still fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, I felt safe enough to close my eyes. But I didn't sleep, because safe didn't mean free. I woke up to the smell of food. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I saw the white ceiling, the massive windows, the city lights blinking in the distance. I checked my phone. 8 p.m. I'd slept for 6 hours. I got up and followed the smell into the main room. Jinwoo was sitting at the dining table, unpacking containers from a bag. Korean food. The kind that came from the small restaurants you had to know about, not the chains. He looked up when I walked in, but he didn't smile. "Sit." Not a question. Not an invitation. A statement. I sat. He pushed a container toward me. "Eat first. Then we'll talk." I opened it. Bibimbap, still warm. My stomach growled before I could stop it. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. I picked up the chopsticks he'd set out and took a bite. It was good. Better than good. We ate in silence. He didn't ask me how I slept. Didn't ask if I liked the room. Didn't make small talk. He just ate, calm and focused, like this was normal. When I finished, he set his chopsticks down and looked at me directly. "You'll stay here until this is resolved," he said. "You don't contact anyone from your old life. Not Tasha, not your coworkers. No one. If someone asks where you are, you're visiting family out of state. For how long? As long as it takes." I set my container down. "You can't just keep me here. I'm not keeping you anywhere." His voice didn't rise. "You're free to leave. But the people Oscar owes don't care that I bought your contract. They care that he embarrassed them. And if they find you before I finish handling this, they won't ask questions. They'll just take you." My throat tightened. "What did you do to Oscar?" Jinwoo leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving mine. "He's alive," he said. "That's more than he deserved." 3 days passed like that. Jinwoo came and went without warning. Sometimes I'd wake up and he'd be sitting in the main room with his laptop, working in silence. Other times I wouldn't see him for 12 hours. He never explained where he went, never told me what he was doing, but I knew it had something to do with Oscar. On the 4th night, I couldn't sleep. I walked out into the main room around 2 a.m. and found Jinwoo standing by the windows, staring out at the city. He was still dressed, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loose around his neck. He looked tired. He didn't turn around when I walked in, but he knew I was there. Can't sleep? He asked. Not really. He nodded, like he understood. We stood there in silence for a while. Then he turned slightly, and his eyes dropped to my collarbone, to the thin, jagged scar that ran along the edge of my shoulder. The one Oscar gave me 6 months ago when he shoved me into the corner of a table. I'd forgotten it was visible. The nightshirt I was wearing had a wide neckline. Jean Woo's jaw tightened. Just barely. But I saw it. That won't happen again. It wasn't a promise. It was a fact. The way he said it, calm, absolute, made my chest tighten. You don't know that, I said quietly. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Yes, I do. He didn't ask how I got the scar. Didn't ask if Oscar did it. He already knew. He'd probably known before he ever stepped in at that party. He turned back to the window without another word. I went back to my room, but I didn't sleep, because I realized something that scared me more than Oscar ever had. Jean Woo wasn't protecting me out of duty. He was protecting me because he'd already decided I was his. I woke up to shouting. Not loud, not chaotic, but sharp enough to pull me out of sleep. I sat up, my heart already racing, and listened. Jean Woo's voice. Low, controlled, but with an edge I hadn't heard before. He was on the phone in the main room. I crept to the door and pressed my ear against it. They don't get to renegotiate, Jean Woo said. The contract was paid in full. If they have a problem with that, they can take it up with me directly. Silence. Then his voice dropped even lower. I don't care what precedent it sets. She's not available. Not to them. Not to anyone. My stomach twisted. I knew who he was talking about. I opened the door slowly. Jean Woo was standing by the windows again, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand curled into a fist at his side. He saw me, but didn't stop talking. 2 days, he said. I'll meet them in 2 days. Alone. And if they come here, if they even think about coming here, I'll make sure they regret it. He ended the call and stood there for a moment, not moving. Then he turned to me. You weren't supposed to hear that. Who were you talking to? He hesitated. That scared me more than anything. Jean Woo didn't hesitate. The people Oscar borrowed from, he finally said. They're not accepting the payment. They want proof that you're no longer available as collateral. Or they want me to pay double. How much is double? More than you need to worry about. I stepped closer. Jean Woo, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. His voice was firm. This was my choice. And I'll handle it. How? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he walked past me toward the door. By making sure they understand that touching you means going through me. The door closed behind him before I could respond. Jean Woo told me to stay in the penthouse. He left with Juan the next evening. Didn't say where he was going, just that he'd be back before midnight. I nodded. Agreed. Watched him leave. Then I went looking for answers. I found his coat draped over the back of a chair. Inside the pocket, a phone, not his main one. A burner, maybe. And clipped to the lining, a small black device I recognized from a crime show I'd watched months ago. A tracker. I didn't think. I just opened the app on my own phone and followed the signal. 20 minutes later, I was standing outside a warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. The kind of place where no one asked questions and security cameras didn't work. I parked a block away and walked, keeping to the shadows. Through a broken window on the side of the building, I could see them. Jean Woo stood in the center of an empty floor, hands in his pockets, perfectly calm. Juan was behind him, arms crossed, watching the 2 men across from them. They were older, thick-built, wearing suits that didn't fit right. One of them was holding a folder. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw Jean Woo pull out a piece of paper and hand it to the man with the folder. The man looked at it, then shook his head. He said something sharp, dismissive. Jean Woo didn't react. The man kept talking, gesturing at the paper, then pointing at Jean Woo like he was making a threat. The other man laughed. Jean Woo just stood there, waiting. Then the first man said something that made Jean Woo's posture shift. It was small, just a straightening of his shoulders. But I felt it from where I was standing. He reached up slowly and unfastened the button on his jacket. The room changed. The 2 men stopped talking. The one holding the folder took a step back. Juan didn't move, but his hand went to his side. Jean Woo let his jacket hang open, and I saw it again. The holster, the dark leather strap across his chest. He didn't pull anything. He didn't need to. He just spoke. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the effect. The man with the folder set it down on a crate between them and stepped back. The other man put his hands up slightly, like he was surrendering without being asked. Jean Woo picked up the folder, glanced at it, then handed it to Juan. He said something else, short, final. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. I ran. I made it back to my car before he saw me, drove back to the penthouse, and got inside just minutes before he did. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to read, when he walked in. He looked at me for a long moment, then at my shoes by the door. They were dusty. His jaw tightened. "Where were you, Shanice?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. He knew. Jean Wu didn't yell. He stood there, staring at me, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched so long I thought he might just walk away. But he didn't. "You followed me." It wasn't a question. I swallowed hard. "I needed to know what you were walking into. You needed to stay here. I couldn't just sit around and—" "Yes, you could." His voice was quiet, controlled, but there was something underneath it that made my chest tighten. "That's exactly what you were supposed to do." I stood up. "I'm not a prisoner, Jean Wu. No, you're someone I'm trying to keep alive." He stepped closer, and I realized how much taller he was. "Do you know what those men would have done if they'd seen you? If they'd realized you were there?" I didn't answer. "They would have taken you," he said. "Not to negotiate. Not to make a deal. To prove a point. And I wouldn't have been able to stop them without starting a war that would have gotten you killed." My throat went tight. I didn't think. That's the problem. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. "You don't know this world, Shanice. You don't know the rules. And you don't get to break them just because you're scared or curious or whatever it was that made you think following me was a good idea." I felt tears burn my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I'm sorry." He didn't respond right away. He just stood there, staring out the window, his shoulders tense. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "I can't protect you if you don't let me." "I know." He turned back to me. "From now on, if I tell you to stay, you stay. If I tell you not to ask questions, you don't. Because the next time you put yourself in danger, I might not be able to fix it." I nodded. He walked past me toward his room and stopped at the door. "Get some sleep. We're not done yet." I thought it was over. For 5 days, nothing happened. Jean Wu went back to his routine, leaving early, coming back late, barely speaking. I stayed in the penthouse like he told me to. I didn't follow him again. I didn't ask questions. I thought maybe we were past the worst of it. I was wrong. Jean Wu came home on the 6th night, and his face was different. Not angry, not calm. Something in between that made my stomach drop before he even said a word. Oscar contacted them. I froze. "What?" "The men I paid off." He reached out to them directly. "Told them where you've been staying. Told them I'm keeping you here against your will." Jean Wu set his phone down on the counter, his jaw tight. "He's trying to convince them to take you anyway. Said if they do, he'll forgive the interest they owe him on a separate deal." My legs went weak. I sat down hard on the nearest chair. He knows where I am? No, but he's guessing. And he's desperate enough to make deals he can't keep. Jean Wu looked at me, and for the first time since I met him, I saw something close to frustration in his eyes. "I gave him a way out, Shanice. I could have killed him that night at the party. I didn't. I let him walk away with his life. And this is what he does with it. What are you going to do?" He didn't answer right away. He just stood there, hands braced against the counter, staring at nothing. "I'm going to finish this." The way he said it made my chest tighten. Jean Wu. He's not going to stop. His voice was quiet. Final. As long as he's alive, he's going to keep coming after you. Keep making deals. Keep putting you in danger. I thought scaring him would be enough. It's not. I felt tears burn my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "You're going to kill him." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. "Would that bother you?" I opened my mouth. Closed it. I didn't know what to say. Oscar had sold me. He'd dragged me by my hair in front of 50 people. He'd spent months terrorizing me, controlling me, breaking me down piece by piece. And even after Jean Wu gave him a chance to disappear, he came back. He'd always come back. "No," I whispered. It wouldn't. Jean Wu's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Understanding. Maybe respect. Then trust me to handle it. Some people don't deserve second chances. If you think Oscar's got what's coming to him, hit subscribe. And drop a comment. Tell me what you would do if someone kept coming after the person you were protecting. Because what happens next is permanent. Jean Wu left that night and didn't come back until morning. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, staring at the door, waiting. Every sound made me jump. Every car that passed outside made my heart race. I checked my phone every 5 minutes, but there were no calls. No texts. Nothing. When the door finally opened, Jean Wu walked in like nothing had happened. His clothes were clean. His hands were clean. He didn't look tired. He didn't look guilty. He just looked like himself. It's done, he said. I stood up slowly. Is he? He's alive. Jean Wu set his keys on the counter. But he's in a hospital. And by the time he gets out, he'll be in prison. For what? Fraud. Assault. Witness tampering. I made sure the charge is stuck this time. He looked at me. He won't be able to hurt you again, Shanice. Not for a long time. I felt something break loose in my chest. Relief. Grief. I wasn't sure which. What did you do to him? I asked quietly. Jean Wu's expression didn't change. What needed to be done? That's all you need to know. I nodded. Because he was right. I didn't want the details. I didn't want to know how many people it took or what Jean Wu had to promise to make it happen. I just wanted Oscar gone. And now he was. Jean Wu walked past me toward his room, then stopped. You're free now. Oscar's not coming back. The debt's cleared. You can leave if you want. I stared at him. What if I don't want to leave? He turned, and for the first time, I saw something softer in his eyes. Then don't. 3 weeks later, Jean Wu asked me to go somewhere with him. Not told. Asked. There's a gathering tonight, he said. Private. Some of my associates. I want you there. I looked up from the book I wasn't really reading. Why? Because it's time people knew where you stand. My heart skipped. Where do I stand? He held my gaze. With me. The gathering was at the same penthouse where the party had been. Where Oscar grabbed me. Where Jean Wu unbuttoned his jacket and changed everything. I almost said no. Almost told Jean Wu I couldn't go back there. But then I realized that's exactly why he was taking me. To prove Oscar didn't own that space anymore. To prove I wasn't afraid. When we walked in, the room went quiet. Not the terrified silence from last time. Something different. Respectful. Curious. Jean Wu's hand rested lightly on my lower back as he guided me through the crowd. People nodded at him. A few greeted me by name. I didn't know them, but they knew me. He stopped in the center of the room, the same spot where Oscar had dragged me down. Jean Wu turned to face the crowd, and I stood beside him. This is Shanice, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it. She's not a guest. She's not under my protection anymore. My breath caught. She's with me. The room understood what that meant before I did. A few people smiled. Others looked away, like they'd just been told something they weren't supposed to question. A man across the room, older, expensive suit, cold eyes, raised his glass slightly. Congratulations, Jean Wu. Jean Wu didn't respond. He just placed his hand on my shoulder. A claim. A statement. Then someone made a comment. Quiet, but I heard it. Something about my past. About Oscar. Jean Wu's hand moved to his jacket. He didn't open it. He just rested his hand there. The man went pale, muttered an apology, and left. Jean Wu looked down at me. You okay? I nodded. Because I was. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was standing in a room full of dangerous people, and I wasn't afraid. Because the most dangerous person in the room had chosen me. And I had chosen him back. Drop your location and the time you're watching in the comments. Tell me, what was your favorite moment? And if you want to know what happens when Shanice's past tries to pull her back one more time, subscribe. Because their story isn't over. Part 2 drops next week.